6 minutes remaining. I moved a bit faster. After about 30 seconds, I stopped and made a hole in the floor above a room with the largest group of monsters I could find. Why? Because not only did the monsters look dangerous, and therefore fun, they were clustered around one of the things that I was looking for. A single green crystal was floating in the center of the room. I dropped down, landing right near it and raising Dawn into a ready stance. Let's do this. A panther-like beast jumped at me as soon as I hit the floor. I kicked it in the face, then spun to cut the wings off of a gigantic wasp. A heartbeat later, the next wasp was in front of me, buzzing and jamming its stinger toward my shoulder. My left arm shot up, grabbing the stinger, and I hurled it straight at the next monster, a bear-like beast with scales all over it. The wasp managed to course correct before it stung the bear, but the bear crashed right into it. Then I jumped on the bear's back, avoiding the lunges of a pair of wolves with tentacles coming out of their backs. I didn't know why so many of Kaldwin's monsters are basically animals with extra horns, scales, or tentacles. At that moment, it wasn't my biggest concern. That honor went to the entire wall on the opposite side of the room, which appeared to be made out of a tangle of thousands of flesh and stone limbs. The wall was gradually moving in my direction, and while it was disturbing enough in appearance alone, that wasn't the real problem. The real problem was that many of those hundreds of arms were, well, armed. Terrible pun, I know. Forgive me. The weapons they were wielding looked like they were made of the same weird, fleshy stone substance as the arms themselves, but they rapidly proved functional. The wall was a good 24 feet away, so the swords and axes couldn't reach me. But there were a dozen bows firing arrows at me and others throwing knives. I deflected most of the projectiles in a flurry of swings, then caught one of the knives by the hilt and threw it at the still-winged wasp. The knife hit it dead on and it fell lifeless. That was about when the bear thing decided it didn't like me standing on it and decided to shake me off. I maintained my footing for long enough to hop free, swinging in midair and cutting a wolf-like beast in half. Then I landed, swung around, deflected another 2 arrows, and cut into the bear. The bear was large enough that it didn't go down in a single swing. Instead, it swiped a counterattack at me, which drove me backward toward the panther that had decided to come up behind me. As it lunged, I kicked backward, once again hitting it in the face. After that, I felt a little awful about continuously hurting it, so I killed it instead. A single upward swing did the trick. Another wolf jumped at me from the left. I punched it out of the air, then spun and kicked the bear toward the wall of arms. The bear flew backward into the reach of the arms, and, let me just say that the results weren't pretty. I resolved to clean up the rest of the monsters without letting the wall near them. It didn't take long. There were 2 more wolves and an additional panther. The wolves attacked at the same time, but it didn't help them much. I switched to a low stance as they approached, then made 2 swift cuts the moment they entered my range. I sensed more stone approaching me from behind, ducked the knife, and deflected a few more arrows. The last panther ran away, moving straight through one of the nearby seemingly solid walls. I had been unaware that it could do that, so I blinked at it. That distraction almost cost me, but my hand moved up and caught an arrow aimed at my face faster than I could consciously process what was happening. That was odd, actually. I'd always been pretty fast, and I'd reacted on instinct many times, but catching arrows at that distance would have been something of a challenge even weeks before. Dawn, I realized. I'd known our connection was helping speed me up and think more clearly. This was the most obvious example I'd seen. With her in hand, clearing the monsters out of the room had been absolutely effortless. The wall was still approaching, but without the other monsters distracting me, it was less of a threat. There were a few easy approaches I could have taken. I could have backed off and used luminous arc to blast holes in it, or reshaped something to stop the wall's movement. But that wasn't any fun. I charged right into the whirling mass of dozens of arms. Within an instant, several arms were swinging weapons toward me.